Hi, my name is Ben Miller, and I'm a physical therapist here at Total Physical Therapy in Amarillo. And today we're going to continue our installment looking at how to start a running program as new runners. Today we're going to look at stretching and mobility exercises. Now this is a hotly debated topic in the running world currently, as there are a lot of research studies that show benefits to stretching, and there are some studies that do not show any benefit to stretching. In fact, there are a lot of coaches out there that would say you should stretch, and there are other coaches that say you should not stretch. And so today's video is just going to be a little guide to kind of give you an idea of what things to look for in yourself for you to be able to stretch, or what things to look for if you should not be stretching. Running is a dynamic exercise that requires some motion for your hips, through your knees, through your ankles, but it doesn't require a whole lot of range of motion. For example, a gymnast requires a whole lot of motion to be able to do all the things that they need to do. Runners require a whole lot less motion to be able to run than a gymnast. And so our need to stretch as runners is a whole lot less than someone who does gymnastics, because we don't necessarily require that motion when we run. Now, if you are tight as a runner and you don't have the amount of motion available to you to be able to get through your running cycle well without being hindered by tightness, then what's going to happen is you're going to end up compensating somewhere. And if you're compensating for thousands of steps at a time when you're running, that can lead to running injuries. So we're going to use stretching to help prevent these compensations that are happening because something is too tight. So you could look at a runner one of two ways. You can see them running, and as they're running, they're not getting their leg very far behind them as they run. They're, either their muscles are tight and not allowing them to be able to get their leg back into what we call extension as they run, or it could be a control issue. As they bring their leg back, their muscles don't necessarily have the coordination down very well, and because it doesn't coordinate very well back that way, it will then toe off early and not go back as far. And so today's video, we're going to give you a couple of tests to be able to assess yourself to determine, are you tight in a couple of different areas or are you not? So the very first area that we're going to look at is what we call ankle dorsiflexion, or the ability for you to be able to bring your toes up if you're standing. The way that you assess this is what we call a chair test. You sit down in a chair, you put your toes up against the wall or a cabinet, and then you slide forward in the chair so your knees touch the wall. And so this is a positive test if you're in this position and you feel tightness through your calf or the muscle in the back of the leg. If you do not feel any tightness back there, then you probably have enough motion to be able to run. Now, if this muscle is tight, there are a couple different ways that you can stretch it. The number one way to stretch it that a lot of people think about is what we call the runner stretch. This is where you go up to a wall, you put your hands on a wall, stick one leg back behind you, put your heel on the ground and think about keeping your entire leg and body straight. And as you do this exercise, you're going to feel a stretching behind your calf. The second area that we're going to look at is what we call hip extension, or your ability to be able to get your leg behind your body. Now, the way that we're going to do this test is what we call a doorway test. So you're going to kneel in front of a doorway. You can also use like a bookshelf or something like that as well. But you kneel in front of a doorway, and what you're going to do is you're going to put your hand back behind your back, and you're going to feel that there's a small arch in the small of your back. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about taking that arch of your back and kind of straightening it or lengthening it to where it's flat against the doorway. As you lengthen your spine and flatten the small of your back, what you may feel is a tightness in front of the leg that is down on the ground in the lunge. If you feel the tightness in front of the leg, then this is an indicator that you should probably be stretching this muscle. So the name of the muscle is what we call the iliopsoas. And the way that you stretch the muscle is exactly the same way that you do the test. You just hang out in that lunge position, think about straightening your back, and then you hold that for a period of time. And that's how you stretch this muscle. The third area that gets a lot of attention from runners is the hamstrings. And the hamstrings, I think a lot of people actually stretch their hamstrings a little too much. But here's the test to see if your hamstrings are too tight. What you do is you lay on your back and you put your hips and your knees into what we call the 90-90 position. You then support the back of your legs with your hands, and then you straighten your knee until up as far as it can go up towards the ceiling. Now, then you take a measurement, or you look with your eyes to see what is the angle that your knee is making relative to the ceiling. You should have at least 20 degrees of knee flexion up here at the top. If you if you have more than 20 degrees, then your hamstrings are too tight and you should try stretching them. And a good way to stretch them is by sitting on the side of a bench or a bed. Then what you're going to do is you're going to sit up as tall as you can. As you sit up as tall as you can, you're going to feel pulling down the back of your leg. And as you feel that pulling down the back of your leg, you also want to make sure that your toes are pointed away from you and not up towards you. And this will effectively stretch your hamstrings. So how are we going to do these stretches? So if we're going to if we're interested in lengthening the muscles, we need to hold them for a period of time. So each time you do the stretch, you should hold for 3 to 5 minutes. You should do this 6 or 7 times a day, and you should be doing this for anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. It takes a long time to be able to build that length in that muscle. Now, when should you be doing these stretches? The best time to do these stretches are actually after a run. Once your muscles are already warm, you've already done your workout, it's a good idea to do your static stretching after this. The reason we do it afterwards is because whenever we statically stretch, what we're actually doing is we're taking a muscle and causing little micro tears. Whenever we lengthen that muscle, it's tearing up that muscle a little bit, and then your body will effectively heal it in that lengthened position. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to cause micro tears in your muscles prior to your working out. That's where a lot of studies have shown that it can actually lead to injury if we do a lot of static stretching prior to working out. Now, static stretching is only one of the main types of stretching that you can do, because a lot of people will say, well, what about the people who stretch before they work out? Well, sure, there are different types of stretching. There's a dynamic warm-up style of stretching where you actually don't hold the muscle in its end range for 3 to 5 minutes. You only hold it there for maybe a couple of seconds. What this is doing is this is actually taking your joint through the full range of motion and getting that muscle to feel what it feels like to go through that full range of motion prior to exercise. This is a good way just to kind of give that muscle some muscle memory. What does it feel like to go through that full range, and how am I going to use that range whenever I'm doing whatever exercise it is, whether it's running or lifting or that type of thing. So doing dynamic style warm-ups where you're including short duration stretches is beneficial, but doing static stretching prior is not. Alright guys, I hope you found this video beneficial for you. If you did, go ahead and give us a like down below. If you guys have any comments or questions about the video, go ahead and post those down below as well. And you guys have a great day.